Well, hello everyone. This is Chrystal Lynn, Cowgirl Astrologer, and I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. I have kind of a fun video I want to do right now, and I want to share with you guys that I get obviously a lot of comments, and I take comments very seriously when somebody has taken the time to really very meticulously write out their question, and even if it is a debate. Because I think that if we are going to get up here and talk about something we're passionate about and talk about how it really genuinely influences people's lives, that, we should be able to back that up. And so when I get questions that people question astrology, that helps me go and dive deeper and say to myself, how can I explain that better? Or what is the purpose of astrology? Or why is it even important for me to try to explain it? Is it that important? So in this case, because this comment was written out so intelligently, I read it several times and I thought, you know what? I would like to try to answer this question. So I made a comment to the commenter and said, hey, if you are interested, let me try to prove myself. I don't know if I can, but let me try to show you, since you're taking the time to really ask this question, let me kind of show you what astrology is and how I use it. Okay, that's where I can come from on this. So they agreed and is allowing me today to do a brief chart reading. And let's see if I can shed some light or bring some credibility to astrology today. So first of all, let's get started, you guys, with reading this question with me. This is the question I got. Mind you, when you hear this question, pay attention, because if you guys want to learn astrology, you will be able to see certain things through how people even write. Okay, so, and I'll explain that here in just a little bit. But first of all, the question was, and this was again based on my Jodi Arias video. I did a astrological analysis of the Jodi Arias case here in California a few years ago. So a lot of people who watched that video don't have a clue about astrology. I get the most comments from my Jodi Arias video because it's people who are following her story. And then they read my analysis and they're like, you're a kook. So I'm going to try to redeem myself today. So the question is, ancient science believes, other than planet rotation, orbit, location, spatial gravitational relationships, and possible life forms obvious to astrophysics, i.e. real science, there is nothing specific about assigning human traits and behavioral characteristics to planets, stars, and other objects in space, and pretending that those assigned values actually influence people's lives. Astrology is great for entertainment value, and that's it. So I was like, wow, this is somebody that is very intelligent. How could I possibly have a conversation in a way that would, bring about a common ground or continue a common discussion? So that's my attempt today. Now, as I'm reading this, I started thinking about everything I've read and everything I've tried to understand myself about the cellular level and the energetic vibrations and the aspects and all of these things scientifically that as astrologers, we try to get a little glimpse of. But what ultimately happens, just like trying to get a glimpse of God or a glimpse of, what came first, God, his creation, the chicken or the egg, we're always questioning these things because I think that there is a place for question, that if we knew everything, we wouldn't need faith. We wouldn't need to even grow. We'd know everything and that'd be it. But there's a reason that certain information is held back from us. So when I try to go into the scientific side of this, I kind of feel like I just be debating energy for energy, concepts for concepts. We could have this whole discussion, but at the end of the day, would you know yourself anymore? Would you feel any better about you? Would I feel any better about me? So I decided, instead of trying to have a very scientific debate, I'm going to show you what it's like for me to read a chart. And I am not just a astrologer, but I also use my intuition and what that looks like. Some of you guys have seen my chart readings. So I am going to go ahead and begin to share a little bit about what I would say about you just by reading your chart, because you know that I absolutely know nothing about you. And this is also, you guys, another very good reason to understand astrology. Like, why even know astrology? Why use astrology? You know, can we use astrology in a positive way as a tool? So, for example, if I were to get a business proposal from somebody, or somebody who wanted to network with me or do something with me that I felt was serious, I would want to look at that astrological chart to get a glimpse of the energy and how I best can work with that, because I can't expect anybody else to change. Can I work with that energy? And so that's one way that I use it. Now, when I'm looking at somebody that I know personally and reading their chart, or somebody I'm getting to know, I read it very generally, because I think even as an astrologer, it's hard to be objective about somebody that we're actually connecting with. We have to leave room for allowing things to play out and not getting too intense of a judgment on anybody before they have a chance, because astrology is so dynamic and there's so many layers to it. One of the comments that our commenter had made was, it's vague and it depends on who reads it, and you know, there's general descriptions, and all that is true. All that is true. You can get a general description. You can get somebody reading your chart that just wants to show you how great they are and doesn't know how to tap in. There's so many different aspects about astrology that does make this complicated. But when I look at your chart, the intelligent side that you have and the way that you process information, astrology is something that you would actually be very good at. It's very mathematical. I often call it an ancient science or an ancient art, because I believe that there is very specific, detailed science to it. And if you have studied it enough and you've went and seen certain aspects happening together, certain events happening with that, certain compatibilities, certain relationships, when you've read this many charts like I have, you see the patterns and you see the situations play out over and over again. And trust me, I'm a skeptic always about everything. So I'm always testing these things. But when I look at your chart, and for those of you out there in astrology, I'm just going to go ahead and give a little information. Our commenter was born on January 22nd, 1954, with a Sagittarius rising or ascendant. And when I first opened this chart, I'm like, why does this chart look familiar to me? This chart looks really familiar to me. Like, I've seen a chart similar to this. Who is it? Who is it? And all of a sudden, it hit me. And I went and double checked it, because it came right to me. You have a very, very similar chart as Oprah Winfrey. You were born just a few days before her. And I say this because this is another way for us to understand astrology. When we are born on the same day or within the same week of people or people we know, we're going to have very similar things happen in our life, and we're going to have very similar personalities. Now, what changes that? What changes those dynamics and the life path is where our ascendant is, which is based on the time you were born, which is where the sun was rising from the east, and where was the moon. Now, interestingly enough, Oprah Winfrey was born with the Sagittarius rising, just like you. You were born with Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Aquarius. You were born with the moon in Virgo. Now, where this difference is a little different from Oprah, she was born with the moon in Sagittarius. So you really only have one major change in your chart that makes you different, but literally almost your whole entire chart is like lined up very similar to hers. And I tell you this because if you wanted to do some research about her life, her bio, different things like that, this is another way to test astrology if it's true. Another way to prove it is her life been similar to mine? Have we had similar experiences? Do I understand her? Maybe you don't like her. Maybe something about her, you think, I don't even like her. But what happens often is we can't see ourselves, but we'll see something in others. So it kind of depends on how you feel about it. But the Aquarius is one of the #1 talk show personalities. Okay, we have strong Aquarius all through the talk show industry. So when I look at a chart like this, I automatically see this very high vibrational intelligence. The Aquarius is ruled by 2 planets. And when we say ruled, we mean influenced. So when you were born, it's a vibration that gets put off. And it's like a snapshot in the sky. It captures you. It embraces you. It embodies you. And you take on that energy in that moment. Now, with the Aquarius, it's a fixed sign. So you are very fixed in your thinking, very black and white. You know how things need to be done. Uranus, which is a very powerful planet up in the sky, is one of the rulers of Aquarius, along with Saturn. That's the ancient ruler. And it creates a discipline, but it also creates this ability to have these totally Uranian thoughts. And that, when we describe that, okay, we describe somebody who's a rebel for a cause, who does things differently, who's always looking for another way, who thinks and knows things before everybody else. This is a sign that can channel information. So often you might be just sitting there and you get like powerful messages. Very clairvoyant. Have the ability to know what's going to happen before what happens. The idea person, the scientist, the inventor. Aquarius also rules the airwaves. So here we have someone that might be excellent on the internet. Somebody that might be excellent up flying planes or jets. John Travolta, an Aquarius, absolutely fascinated and passionate about flying. Because it rules the airwaves, you're able to kind of operate in this other dimension. Sometimes the Aquarius is very, very attracted to stuff like aliens, because if there is aliens, the Aquarius is hearing them, okay? Because you're able to tap into this like other vibration. You could be very connected with things of the history, Native American type stuff. It's a very karmic sign. So it has a lot of understanding of the past, the present, the future. Now, this energy also can come off as very detached. That's why it actually makes good talk show hosts, because they don't get so emotionally involved. I have a lot of Pisces in my chart, so when people are talking to me, I like get way too emotionally involved. And a lot of times that's hard because I'm just like totally saturated in people's problems, where the Aquarius can step back and pluck out the information and bring it out in a way that everybody can benefit from it. Now, interestingly enough, I said earlier this was an air sign. So that's why for you, astrology might be kind of difficult, because, be honest, intellectually, you are kind of above and beyond any type of tools that a lot of us do use. Astrology is a tool, and it takes a very scientific mind to want to even study it to the very detailed degree. But you do have the mind to do that, just so you know. Now, interestingly enough, you were born with your ascendant, which is your life path, in Sagittarius. This is the philosopher. This is the teacher. This is the master. Okay, very, again, intelligent. You may have pursued higher education. You may have degrees. That's very common for the Sagittarius. It's a fire sign, so it's competitive. So there's a part of you that likes to get out and be amongst people and have intelligent conversations. You're going to be very attracted to intelligent people. You know, you are going to get very, very bored if you're not having stimulating, intelligent conversations because, again, you operate on such a higher level. Now, the other thing about your chart that's very interesting, and remember, you guys, I'm just kind of doing a brief overview because these things can get very in-depth. But if I was looking at this chart, these are the things that are coming out in me. You were born with the moon in Virgo. Now, Virgo is very analytical, very practical. It's a healer of the earth. I'm a Virgo as well, which might have been why you actually watched my video. Might have drove you crazy, but there was something about it that you just wanted to have a discussion because I've got that type of mind that likes to pick up on all the little details, and you get that. You want to go there. The Virgo often gets kind of, you know, accused of being really difficult. And it's because our mind is very difficult. Our mind is very complex. It goes very fast because it's ruled by Mercury. Even right now, while I'm reading this chart, because of the incredible energy coming off of it, and I am an empath, I'm picking up on your energy. And I'm finding myself talking very fast and thinking very fast. And that's the difference between an intuitive reader versus someone that reads charts very scientifically. And both are good. I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's just that I pick up on the energy of a chart. So chart reading, when you're talking about different people reading charts, you're right. It's just like if you went to church, there's different preachers behind the Bible that preach, and some styles we like and some styles we don't. But ultimately, we're going to learn something that we all have a common bond in. So you find people that, you know, operate at the caliber your mind operates at. Otherwise, you will get bored, very bored. So for you, you need a lot of stimulation. You could be a very good entrepreneur. Moon and Virgo can make excellent entrepreneurs, very perfectionistic, possibly very good writer here. I see the potential for writing. Again, I keep having that internet come out, that you could be very well known on the internet, any type of way that you decide to put all this powerful energy. This is huge, powerful energy in your chart. And in a chart like this, if you don't use it and keep that mind stimulated on a very high intellectual level, you could get caught up in mundane arguments with people because you're bored. But yet you have this need to want to have these debates and discussions, which is a part of who you are. Questioning it. Tell me, I want to know more. And I like that about you. I like that about you. Don't ever lose that. Now, I'm going to go a little deeper here in talking about your chart. This is where I really kind of want to go. When I look at your chart, I see that Mars was transiting through Scorpio when you were born. And that is extremely powerful. Mars in Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and Mars. So you've got this strong drive here, strong ambition, strong ability for deep research, for investigation. So you could go down into a very deep study of astrology or any type of faith or religion or anything that interests you. You're the kind of person that's going to master it once you decide it holds your attention, once you decide that it can keep you stimulated. But this is also where you're very intuitive. This is also where you're very psychic. Psychic, when I say psychic, it's just the ability to see through the facade, see through into another dimension. I would call you the Hawkeye with that moon in Virgo, with that detailed eye, and with your spirit, with your intuition. It's like you've got this eye right here and it goes down in your gut. So you have the ability to know when people are a fraud, when people are not telling the truth. Now, this energy, often we see anybody who has Scorpio this strong in their chart, usually it takes a very dominant theme in their life. So in this case, and I also want to say, you were also born with Saturn in Scorpio. So this is what we call a conjunction. The planet Mars and the planet Saturn were in the same sign when you were born. And that brings a very heavy influence and vibration to who you are. Now, how do we, one of your questions was, how do we put personalities on planets and characteristics? Well, because this has been studied for so many ancient years that when this is, I don't know if that made sense, ancient years, this has been studied for many, many years. I'm trying to be intelligent because I know you are. But patterns, different things in regards to generational changes. Astrologers have studied this for many, many years and seen the common threads. So again, a good study for you is to go look at Oprah Winfrey's life and find out, even in her history, is there anything similar to you? Often Mars and Scorpio as a young child or even into their adult years can experience very tumultuous events, losing somebody very early, just seeing a part of life, a darker side of life that nobody wants to see. But in doing that and having that experience, as awful and hard as it can be emotionally, you are a true deep person under there, and you understand the psychological makeup and what people really go through on the darker side. This will give you a psychic ability to communicate to the other side if you've ever opened up to that. It's just understanding that you're able to connect in to other people's energies. You know, even if they've passed here on Earth, they leave an energy here when they go, whatever your belief system is. So whether you're feeling that leftover energy or you're able to connect on the other side, that's something you're very sensitive to. This also might have been, you know, you might have had a lot of night terrors as a kid or really scary dreams, because Scorpio does reveal to us the dark side of life. Where this can get complicated in your personal life is the fact that you struggle between two really powerful concepts. The one concept is wanting to be friends with everyone, wanting to possibly, you know, pursue humanitarian pursuits, or, you know, you have an idea and you can bring a lot of people together if you choose to do that. With the Sagittarius ascendant in your chart, you're a leader, you're a teacher, people follow you. With this energy, with the Mars and Scorpio, this changes things up a little bit because it pulls you down a little bit and wants you to preserve a very private side of who you are. You like to know about what everybody else is doing, but when it comes to you, you are private. You don't share your emotions easily. And this may be a really strong conflict within you because you've got this side of you that can be detached and just look at it from an intellectual point of view and not get your emotions into it. But deep down in the heart of who you are, you're a very caring, wonderful, deeply invested person in the things that you do invest in. You know, and that can be hard. That's a hard energy. So what does astrology do? If you were coming to me in a reading, I could help you explore that a little bit more and help you say to yourself, okay, you know, I've got this and I'm this, and oh, now that makes sense. Some people, it helps them to finally have somebody be able to kind of separate all of the things that we have inside of us and then help us put it back together again. Some people get disconnected from who they are. You have a very strong awareness of who you are. With the Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Aquarius, you know, that's strong ego. That's the Aquarius just knows who they are. Sometimes they get, you know, they get told that, you know, they've got a God complex. Well, it's because they understand the message of God naturally. It's something that comes to them very naturally, and they understand, and they know that if they can get their ideas and they can get their invention to get some legs behind it, that they are the original inventors. You know, everybody always talks about, you know, that was my idea. That was my idea. You know what? The Aquarius has probably had that idea long before anybody did. The secret is acting on it, because a lot of times they know it, but acting on it can be a little more difficult. So, all this being said, this is just a few things that I would look at. Now, the last thing I want to say, because I'm it's not so much that I'm trying to convince you that astrology is true, and I hope that we can continue this conversation. I hope that if there is anything in here that, you went, well, yeah, that's might be kind of true, that you do say, wow, how is it possible that she could come up with all of that understanding about me without ever meeting me? So maybe that will breed the question for you to do your own search, to do your own study on this, because I think if you actually did, you would be an amazing leader in the metaphysics, because you've got this ability to understand the vibrations. Now, when I look at your chart and I were to do a transit reading, again, this is just an example. When I look at your chart and I said, where are you at right now? You have just made it through your second Saturn. This only happens once every 29 years. You were born with Saturn and Saturn, but this again gives you that deep insight, that mind of the psychologist. And you've just been through it. That transit was from October 2012, December 23rd, 2014, right at Christmas. And you probably know more than anybody that the last 2.5 years have been incredibly intense. Saturn in Scorpio, when we look at Saturn up in the sky, squares Aquarius as well. So most of your chart has been under deep, intense change. So when we as astrologers say things like, Saturn's been kicking your butt, yes, I'm putting a personality on him. Just like we do for dogs or we do for a car, we say, oh, she's a good old car, or she's a good old girl. It's because we're describing a connection that we have. But with astrology, when we get into the more scientific side of it, I'm going to use this as an example, okay? Saturn, when Saturn comes into transit, and what that means is when Saturn up in the sky is aspecting you, the energy you were born with. It might not be aspecting your next door neighbor. It might only be aspecting you based on what you were born with. That's what astrologers can do, is tell you what cycles you're in, help you prepare for those a little bit, help you know you're not crazy, help you get through those depressions a little better, because the energy shifts. Saturn is very dense, it's very cold, it's very hard vibration that comes through. So when it aspects our chart, all of that cellular excitement and energy that we normally embody can feel flattened. So we can't do all the things we normally can do. And for a lot of people, that brings about confusion and depression. But that energy is trying to help us focus on the things that are important and get rid of all the stuff that's not important. So Saturn brings this heavy, kind of dense energy into our lives. And when we go through a transit, we're kind of fighting against this heavy energy. But because astrologers have followed Saturn and the transits and how it affects generations and how it affects personal people, they also know that after you go through a Saturn return, that people go through amazing transformations, amazing opportunities to rise to the top, to find themselves. Again, this only happens once every 29 years. So if you looked at your life personally and went back to when you were 28, 29 years old, you might see a similar theme to what you went through. This second Saturn might have completed something in your life that happened 30 years ago. You might have been able to find, finally, resolution. Maybe it got brought up. Maybe truths got brought up. Maybe you dealt with betrayal. Those are some of the themes that play out when you have this strong Scorpio in your chart. I see that you have a a Sagittarius ascendant. We have now moved into in Sagittarius. So you are getting ready to have your title change. The next 2.5 years, you're getting ready, thing that you have ever done in your lifetime. Now there's a chance for it to all come together. And your identity, your title, the next 2.5 years is going to be changing. That's this next cycle. But you've been through the heavy emotional stuff now. This second half of your life, you're on a very strong financial quest. You will be building. You might have had some financial blows the last 7 years, okay? The way that your chart's lined up. You've been hit hard. You've been in transformation. You've been trying to figure out what the heck to do now. But you're so intelligent and you have so many abilities and you're moving into a breath of fresh air of new energy that you have the ability to rise to the top. You have the ability to take your stand in life and finally be respected for all that you've done. So it's up to you to take this advice and take this energy in and say to yourself, wow, knowing that kind of does give me, the ability to see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. Coming out of Saturn and Scorpio, you might feel like, again, you've had your butt kicked and you're tired and you're still dragging and you're trying to get excited about life. You might be afraid to pour your heart into anything again. Don't be afraid. It's a process of cleansing our lives. It's a process of showing us the truth so we can live in truth. You are a truth seeker. Again, you are a leader. So lead the way. And if you have any more questions about astrology or would like to find out, anything more about what I'm talking about, I would be happy to continue this conversation. If this video did resonate in any way, I hope you'll comment. And thank you for taking the time to question it. I hope that I was able to shed some light today. All right, you guys, have an awesome day. And thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.